All right, am I good? All right. Thank you. We're going to head into the superintendent's report. As a reminder, tonight is an informational meeting. It's a night to ask questions. It is a night to get more details on some things that we might be able to move around a little bit. The board will not be making any decisions tonight. We are going to be making our decisions next Monday, April 6th, at our meeting at 6:30. Most likely, it'll probably be back in here. I think we could probably assume. All right, Ruben, you ready?
Good evening. We're going to be talking about tonight about some updates that are pertinent to just our everyday happenings. So last week we had some professional development here. I just wanted to share a couple short stories about that. Then we're going to go into some history and the importance of the system whenever talking about budgets and budgetary potential reductions and so forth, ensuring that when we make reductions, we understand that every piece of the puzzle, in a sense, is part of a greater system. And so it's important to know what can transpire if the wrong pieces, in a sense, are removed from the entire puzzle. Review of budget reduction concepts. School care payment update. So the school board agenda talks about 2025-26 update and 2026-27 budget update. And so school care is kind of woven into the entire presentation here. And then grants funding update, which deals with both. Unanticipated revenue. There's been a lot of conversation about unanticipated revenue. What if we were able to get more revenue or have people pay for various programming and so forth? What would that mean in the short term? Then what would that mean in the long term? What are the risks involved? And we're going to talk a lot about risk as well tonight. Trust funds. It's important to know what we have for trust funds and then how those trust funds can be utilized. We're going to look briefly at the discrimination RSA 186.11.33 and implications that are within that. And then a legislative update, not a thorough one, but just some recent pertinent information that has happened that directly relates to public education and funding. So last Wednesday evening, I was able to go and be a guest speaker at a leadership seminar in Keene State College. And so I was asked to present to a group of about 20 to 30, I guess you could say, future positional leaders around the region from about maybe 15 different school districts within the state of New Hampshire, maybe some in Vermont, to talk about distributed leadership theory. And so it was a nice 45-hour conversation, a little back and forth, and we discussed systems thinking, the importance of a common vision, the idea of collective leadership, which is a model that we've subscribed to here in this district, and the idea of co-creation instead of buy-in. Simultaneously, March 24th, 25th, and 26th, we had Great Minds Professional Development coming here to the schools, so to each of the schools, Rains Memorial School, Jaffrey Grade School, and Conant Middle High School. As many of you are aware, we are currently in the second year of a K-8 literacy, English literacy, reading, language arts implementation for seamless curriculum, instruction, and outcomes. This is a very intense curriculum. I think that if you talk to any teacher, especially at the elementary level, that is implementing this, they would tell you how much work it takes to implement this. And the individual, after these 3 days, who was same person, stayed all the way through and did this coaching model professional development for teacher leaders and for administrators in how to help continue to deepen and further the work. She said that all of our schools were marked by our teachers, all of our teachers, having our learners or our students doing the hard work. And that's when you know it's being implemented properly, when the students are doing the hard work. And so that's commendable. They also discussed how the schools had, specifically one was mentioned over at Rins Memorial School, where every place that they had gone, and interestingly enough, this was a location that we weren't sure we were going to even be able to get the professional development in that day, thanks to the administration and some other people, I think administration from other schools. They were able to figure out how to make it work and get the professional development to happen. And she said that she just gave a very strong compliment about the school and how it is very rare to have everyone on board and aligned with the mission of the work that needed to happen. Furthermore, because we do have the makings of a collective leadership model where we have team leaders and so forth, these team leaders, a couple of them came to administration and indicated how excited that they were, how much they wanted to continue this work, how much they wanted to be basically a teacher, coach, teacher model, and that they wanted to be the ones, instead of the administration, to be able to take over the conversations on many of these efforts. And this was stated about the other two schools as well. So I just want to say I'm proud of the work that you've been doing, and I'm proud of the work that our teachers, our administrators have been doing, and the attention to detail and the attention to the commitment to each and every learner. That segues into the system. This is a picture that I use. It fits a little bit the way my brain works, but also I did not come up with it. It was adapted by a couple different other authors. And if you were to think of a typical system where you have someone at the top, and then people underneath them, and then more people, and this, what we call a hierarchy or a hierarchical leadership structure. If you were to take that structure, whether it be a triangle or a pyramid, if it's three-dimensional, and you were to take it from the top and just squish it all the way down, that's called flattening the leadership model or flattening the hierarchy. And what that does here in this leadership or ecosystem model is it puts people in positional authority, like myself, or principals, assistant principals. It puts them in an area, in that little blue area, where they are supports, they're helping keep the vision at the center of everything, and they're getting resources, professional development, there's coaching, there's a wide array of things. It's also helping with communication and keeping the communication going. It's giving the other individuals and the other teams, whatever they may be, the ability to lead and to create and to take risk and to mess up and then to learn from one another. That's what all those lines are for. And then to do that with themselves, but also their partners. It's kind of actually what we're doing here right now, Lisa, in that these are partners here in our community and you're taking input in. And then as a result, we're able to make better decisions or clearer decisions. and keep the organization moving and moving at a faster rate because people are co-creating rather than just having to be bought into an idea over a period of time. This system, which we've implemented, and the system is supposed to replicate itself in its perfect form all the way through the organization, even into the classroom. This would be the picture of a cooperative learning classroom, for instance. If pieces are removed from this that are key to its success, then other things start to break down. This is a story not too long ago, actually, that this took place. This is a book written by a couple individuals, one of whom was a professor who worked with many of our teachers here, Peggy Wozniak. And she wrote this and got it published a couple years ago, Leading from the Edge of the Box. And she puts a story in there about the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District, specifically the Conant Middle High School. At that time, we were having budget difficulties. We were in a space where we were going to have to make several cuts. At that time, the collective here at this school, administration, teachers, they had a meeting, they had several meetings, and they came up with a plan as to how to restructure their school together. They worked on this, knew where they were going, knew what they wanted to accomplish, and they did this in a matter of just 2 or 3 months, going from the system that they had from a schedule to a greater, or the current system that we have with the day-to-day structure that helped support all the other work that had been done with curriculum, instruction, evaluation, assessment. To help continue and strengthen, first of all, the foundation of the work, but also then to continue the upward mobility of the work, which we have seen significant evidence of as a result of them working together, making decisions together, leading together. These arrows, again, something that I did not develop, I took from Peter Senge, who is the leader, or was the leader of systems thinking throughout the world. Going from the left side, where you have the arrows, where you might have a vision, but all the other pieces just aren't going in that direction to help you get there. To one where we have that vision that's known and everyone is moving in that same direction. Every part of the organization, every curriculum aspect of things. I don't think we're completely to that perfect spot right now, but I do know that the arrows are getting closer and closer to being in complete alignment. Characteristics of high-performing schools. There's been a lot of conversation about high-performing schools and comparing us to some of them, or saying that we need to have higher test scores and things like that. And I think those are good conversations to have. But characteristics of high-performing schools, these are, you can find these anywhere by going online and researching. You can type in high-performing schools. Most of these are from Marzano and other researchers. But you need strong leadership, high expectations for all students. What's defined by that is typically schools that perform highly also have a lot of coursework that includes the AP, IB, like advanced placement or international baccalaureate courses, things of that nature. So they have a lot to offer, usually at the secondary level, because when people move to locations, they're often looking at the secondary schools. Effective use of data, collaborative professional development, engagement, family and communities, focusing on instructional strategies, safe and supportive environments. Important piece over here when we talk about data-driven instruction and personalized learning and curriculum and effective use of data, that all requires specific structures that are in place. Professional learning communities, those need to be in place in order for all of that to actually happen. all the systems we have here and we have put in place, while not perfect in their complete implementation at this point in time, always improving, sometimes taking a step back and then 2 steps forward. These are all the best research-based practices that are out there in education, and we have been able to work on implementing every single one of those. As an emphasis of a safe and supportive environment, we have been working on our MTSSB, which is multi-tiered systems of support for behavior and wellness, and received a grant, $1.25 million grant on that to help us with safe and supportive schools. So when you see something later on in this presentation about SASS, S-A-S-S, that is not to be confused with the state assessment. That is different, but it is to be about safe and supportive schools. Service learning, arts programs, extracurricular activities, strong teacher support, leadership development opportunities, both for staff and for our learners. All of these are integral to the work that we are doing. All of them work together, not as in isolation from one another, but intertwined together to help us move forward. When, especially in a system where perhaps learners come to school, many, without a huge number of deep multicultural, we'll call it, or experiences or other types of experiences where they've seen a lot of things to kind of build their learning on to, we have the opportunity here to provide that support and that learning and those diverse opportunities for all of our kids. Moving into budget, Jen Horn, Director of Student Services, Carrie, our CFO, and I, we meet regularly anyway, especially this year, it would seem, to view where things are financially. Most of you are aware that we were provided a $585,000 school care or health insurance bill that we need to pay by July 15th. This was something that was unbudgeted. This was something that was as a result of being part of a this school care network, this risk pool that had some difficulties that we were unaware of over a 2-year period of time. We had to take care of. We believe that we'll be able to take care of that within the next couple of weeks, but of course that also may mean, if you look at that last one, we may have to do some freezing of spending because we have to guarantee cash flow. If you don't have cash flow, because of a lot of our money is reimbursed, so after the fact, like grants, all our grants are reimbursement monies. Anything we use in our trust funds, those are reimbursement money, so we have to upfront the money first, and without that type of cash flow, it's very difficult to do that. These middle 2 bullets have to do a little bit with why we're all here. Sometimes we look for magic or other ways to help things that we want to keep kind of stay, or to create new avenues. I don't think there's any of that magic, and there's definitely no pockets of extra money anywhere. What we did was we looked at all of the rules of how we can manage various grants that we have, what we were able to do is we were able to, through some work that Jen can do, to place staffing inside the grants and get reimbursed for that we have done, people who we have paid this year, as well as this $1.25 million now 4 more year grant that we have for safe and secure schools. We were able to include one of our positions for at least part of the year to save another $25,000-$30,000 there. All in all, with those 2 one of which we're still writing and getting it to happen, but we were able to promise basically that we'll be able to get $120,000 back into this year's budget so that we can utilize that. That would allow us to prepay things that could be in the, or that are in the budget or slated to be in the budget next year, like Chromebooks. So Chromebooks, that's something we've done before, and we have the quotes and we're ready to roll once we have the funds for that. Another thing that has been typical that we have been able to cover is if there are people retiring and they have contractual buybacks that come back because of having not used sick days and things of that nature. We have another $42,000 that can be paid in June as opposed to July. And so we've been able to get that, save that $120,000 out of next year. So that's something that can be, that the board can consider when thinking about what to do. Similarly, we have, we plan to continue our work with not only multi-tiered systems academically, but multi-tiered systems behaviorally. They go hand in hand. There's a lot of overlap, but there are very specific regulations when you receive federal funds as to what you need to do. And so these dollars are going to be able to be used in such a way that will allow us to save approximately $100,000. If we had been able to put some other structures in place, which we were not be able to because the budget didn't pass, we would have been able to actually save closer to $150,000, but we have to have, it has to be dealt with differently now. So that, we'll say $100,000, max $130,000. Around $250,000 is what can be saved in next year's budget by doing these two things with these grants. I'm grateful to the people who helped me write that grant for the SAS to be able to get that. That was great. Those people have been, some of them are here in this room, and thankful for Jen as well for looking in and researching all possibilities on how to best use IDEA funds, which is helpful. So that's $250,000. That's little to no risk. Now, I'm just going to briefly go over these. This is just because some people may not have been here last time. These are not recommendations. These are some, this is the reality of what it would take to keep things rolling, keep things moving forward in a world where we are definitely going to have to reduce. 1.8 million is a lot of money. That on top of what we had to reduce last year, that's a lot of personnel. 70% of it, 80% of it is going to be personnel. That's what our budget is made up of. So I'll be a little more specific because I know that there was some confusion. So these are subtractions. I'll tell you what's subtracted from the proposed budget. And then also I'll tell you what is would actually be lost from what we currently have. Right now, we do not have an assistant superintendent. There were reasons for putting one in, largely because there are about 3 positions in the SAU that don't exist right now. And so as we look to move forward, we were trying to find a sustainable solution to get some of those back. When pre-K was put back into the budget last year with these funds that we had, we knew that we would need to have extra support in that area in the elementary school with administration and there were some other initiatives that were happening that we wanted to do. So rather, we felt like keeping an administrator, which was on the docket to be cut at the elementary level, superseded anything about the SAU, and that the SAU we would get by for the year and do our best to keep that going. Interestingly enough, I state that because that's where we're at again. So as the board considers pre-K, understand that there's other pieces that are being asked to be removed or suggested to be removed from this that would be supportive of making sure things happen. One of those would be the elementary assistant principal. Now that position is a position that does exist right now. So removing that from the budget would be a loss of another individual, and changing the model and perhaps even what the job would be of that other elementary assistant principal who would have to be covering both schools. In the budget right now would be these 3 teachers. We would lose those 3 teachers, those positions. We have these 4 elementary teachers right now. Now there are a couple of retirements, so there is some attrition. That said, once you also remove universal access to 4-year-old pre-K, that adds another layer of 4 extra teachers, and then what we call the reduction in force process all changes. But those are all positions that currently exist. The Little Oriole Center. The Little Oriole Center it's an expense, but it's a revenue generator, or I should say it's not a revenue generator, it's paid for by revenue. This, I would say to the board that if this was something that you were considering because of the clear retention of staff capabilities that it has had and the history that it has had, along with some student instructional experiences, that we did get I saw that there were some community suggestions about the approach taken, going down to one lead teacher model with a variety of part-timers. We could save about 40,000 out of that, maybe 50, maybe. You can take away something, but you have to, fill it in with some part-time. You could do that and get that model cheaper, and it would still be paid for. So that's not going to change it, but it would be less of an expense that you'd have to deal with from the budgeting side. Again, even though it doesn't have a tax, it's tax neutral, it is an expenditure, and we have, and voters vote on that number. And so the number has to go lower. And so the difficulty of this is that while this is a staff retention tool, in a sense, among other things, it also means keeping it may suggest removing staff in order to do so. So it's a difficult one. And then when you throw in the concept of pre-K, that complicates matters a little bit more. 6th grade case manager, that position is currently in the budget. The D, district-wide behavior interventionist, that's currently in the budget. These 2 were chosen not because we don't need them. We chose them because they weren't filled. So part of the reason why we were able to pay for some of our health care is because other people did the job, did a lot of work in order to make up for some things that were happening here. We certainly don't want to lose these positions. We need these positions. These are positions that are very beneficial, especially as we see things coming down from the state with our responsibilities to charter schools and student services and the potential of school choice. And our responsibilities with special needs are becoming less and less clear, actually, what they are. We can assume that we're going to be responsible. Point 5, these next 2 positions, the red meant it wasn't in the default budget, but this point 5 and that point 5 make up a position, and those are in the budget. Those will be lost in this scenario. Library and media associates are in the budget. They would be removed if this were to be the case. The restorative classroom. There are 2 restorative classrooms. So this situation here is one where you have to think systems. So there's a restorative classroom for younger learners, elementary and then older elementary, and there's some overlap. This is something I certainly would not normally put on this document, except that there are currently no learners registered to be in that program. Now, the reason why, I don't mean for the total program, I mean for one of those spaces. It would still keep the program. The program would still run. It's a matter of downsizing it for the temporary, and then, if need be in the future, we might have to rebuild. It's better to keep everything flowing all the way through, but that's a reality of where things are. And what that means is that's not necessarily meaning a removal of the staff of that program, because that's a whole different approach. So people are thinking like, oh, the restorative classroom, those people who are in that area, they're the ones that are gone, that would be losing their jobs and having to look at. There's a whole process of reduction in force, and people who are in that classroom are typically dual certified with regular ed as well as special ed, and so that goes into the category, all the categories across, the elementary schools and so forth. Some supplies, what we could give up, and then a $233,000 reduction in athletics and activities. That's what those three lines are right there. Now, the .8 athletic trainer, that is in the budget. That will be a loss from what is currently here. That's what we had this year. The red, we did have all of that this year, but that was as a result of the board's use of funds, other funds last year. That's why we had it. Otherwise, that would not have been the case. And then there are some things that, because we're looking at systems, that we were looking at that we had to deal with, that we had to add because they're not in the default. And I see I have a spacing issue, I apologize. Chromebooks was one of those. They were not in the default budget. We have already been down that path. We know that if we did not have those on that cycle, that we would struggle significantly. This is one of those things we can pay for in advance. The librarian, that was part of all that conversation last year with the $3 million reductions. We're saying instead of the librarian, let's be even across the schools, more or less even. The middle high school gets hit a little harder because they have a full-time person there, but the library media associates, as stated earlier. French teacher is not in the budget. It was something that was saved with some of the funds that we used for athletics activities pre-K last year, and that kept a program going. While we have Spanish and Mandarin as well, this helps to diversify what we offer. Also, when we understand that French and Mandarin are really there both in their capacity because we hired one person who had both of those skills, that's susceptible to actual loss of programming just because of the person. So keeping our programming funded in that area is important for a large group of individuals in middle school and high school. Because we took out of this budget already some administrative support for the middle school, high school, we would need to put back some funding in for the assistant principal so that we can handle a lot of the needs that transpire. We have good data on discipline in the middle school, high school, but that's as a result of an entire system that we talked about a little bit, and the continued work with MTSSB will continue to help our systems go well. JRAO, SAU exempt, non-exempt, those are raises. There was some people who indicated that there was ambiguity around that as it was combined all together. If you go through the budget documents and do some addition, you would see where those lines are. Basically, JRAO, all of the administrators in all the schools, and the SAU exempt and non-exempt is everyone in the SAU, apart from myself, who are either working in a director position or a coordinator position or an administrative assistant position or a payroll clerk or things of that nature. So anyone non-exempt in our definition here basically is the hourly employees versus an exempt employee. Non-hourly, you can't get overtime, that sort of thing. Exempt from overtime is what it is. So that's all of those individuals. There's quite a few of them, and the percent increase is less than other areas of the district. Athletic activity, so adding in, keeping, the proposal is to keep all varsity sports. The proposal is to, in this sense right here, if you're going to look at it as a proposal, is to keep all middle school and other high school activities and athletics in a form that is a little bit reduced but consistent. So there's a lot of transportation decreasing. There's going to have to be some creative scheduling to make this happen. We may be doing the minimal required number of games in different sports and so forth, but sometimes doubling up on buses that might have to take place. But basically making certain that all of our learners, all 500 to 600 learners in middle school and high school have that sense of belonging, that access to a wide array of programming that we know that high-level schools have and can offer their kids. And so we want to continue to keep that. The support for all of that movement is already in the budget. And then 6th grade ELA, that was an example. We talked about that at length at the board meeting, that while we would look to reduce an English language arts position within the school at the high school level, we found that we had reduced too much at the middle school this past year. That caused us a significant number of problems, as well as we're trying to provide strong implementation of this ELA program, having all the right staff. It's a very extensive programming. So those are just reviews of things and maybe some clarification. The board's talked about, and it's been asked about in the community, about what about unanticipated revenue? What if we charge for things? So the board can accept unanticipated revenue. This would enable the board to spend in excess of the budgeted expenditures. So when the school district gets a budget that the community approves, we can't spend past that number unless the board accepts unanticipated revenue and then they're able to utilize that for something that was unanticipated. Now, if this approach were used to fund a program, the board would have to be careful how it went about doing that for this year, especially because we haven't planned for that type of thing. So for instance, if we removed a program, let's say we removed the board, let's say the board wanted to say, let's keep 2 pre-K classrooms and we're going to get the community parents to pay for it or something like that. Let's say, $9,000 or whatever, $1,000 a month. The best process is to actually get the money in advance so that you know that you can pay the people who are going to be running the program. Another way of doing it is to get people to promise that they're going to do this and sign up with sign contracts and so forth, and then bill them on a monthly basis, typically at the first of the month. And the board can assume risk. Those are a couple different ways. However, no matter what type of programming you put in place through this unanticipated revenue process this year, we all have to think about the patterns of passing budgets in the community. And so if the following year, whatever programs we want to keep or run by using revenue, that expense has to go into the budget. That goes on the line that goes into the warrant article. and then the revenue to offset it. So even though it may not have a tax impact, you have to put both of those in there. If the budget doesn't pass and you get the default budget, you'll lose the program and or in theory, I mean, I suppose you could move other things around, but you essentially could lose the program, and you definitely lose the ability to fund it through unanticipated revenue, because it's no longer unanticipated, it was planned. It was how you were going to do business. So as we think about that this year, there's some flexibility, and the board could take some risk going forward too, but that may not be the way to go. Trust funds. Our attorney said you should probably tell people how trust funds work. Some school districts have a lot of trust funds, and when you have trust funds, if they're very general and loose in their wording, you have a little more leeway on how to use them. Our special ed, I'm going to start with the second one because I'm taking that off the table. The Special Education Trust Fund is very tightly worded, and it's specifically only for unanticipated is the language it uses, but basically emergency expenses. Someone moves into the district, this is very common, especially with smaller districts, this can hurt. And there needs to be an out-of-district placement. Out-of-district placements can be $100,000, $150,000. They can be upwards of $500,000 or more. And so we have enough in reserves for about 2 medium-leveled out-of-district placements. But that can't be utilized in this case, so that's off the table. The Healthcare Benefits Trust, down the road, that could be very beneficial if money was put in there over a period of time, and suddenly you knew that in the budget season you were going to, our healthcare is going to go up 30%. And you're like, oh no, that's going to be like 30% would be $1 million. So $1 million increase to the budget. That's not good. But if you had $500,000 in there, you could utilize that fund to say, we'll take care of that and reduce what would be asked for raising and appropriating in the future. Unfortunately, we just developed that, and we might get $25,000 in there just to start it up. So it's really not an option. The Maintenance Reserve Trust is worded in such a way that it's used for facilities repair and construction. So that has a looser meaning. And so, for instance, we could, and this is for the board's knowledge, all right, and I'm not advocating this practice, but you could say, well, we could reduce the places in our budget that deal with repair and maintenance. I know it's about $190,000 that is in that line. And then save, basically, that same amount or more within this trust fund. And if it comes to the point that we need it, you'd have that, the board would be able to, act on that in a way, and that's at least covering your bases. That said, we also have to wrestle with the fact that we have facilities to maintain, money's in that for a specific reason, and so while we are going to fix the track or rebuild the track here in May, and we're starting to work on a contract to start maybe 3 to 5 year window replacement cycle in the elementary schools, and then do some flooring and stuff like that. This would mean, if you were to use this, maybe doing not as much as you could in those areas, and postponing it a little bit. Now, the thinking of a school board in that time frame is like, okay, what are our trends from year to year? And our trends from year to year are typically that we have a surplus of 2%. If you budget properly, you want to be in that spot where you have a surplus of 2%, roughly $500,000 to $700,000. You do that because that gives you cash flow ability. We know, being here before, we've had very difficult times when we didn't have cash flow paying people. So not too long ago. So you could say, well, in the past, we've had some of those trends, and maybe this is not a big risk, and we might be able to figure that out. Not, again, necessarily recommended, but legal, and it's a tool that you have. RSA 186.11.33. Discrimination. This is something our attorney said, you know, when we talk about programming, and this would really relate more to programming that's part of the school day or as part of the normal, I would say, K through 12 structure, is that in anything you do, you know, you need to be understanding of equity. And so I highlighted the last part because anything we do, and this is what we've been working on for the last really 7 to 8 years, is making sure that we are ensuring that people have the ability to be part of, participate, take advantage of anything and everything that we can provide without risk of their not being able to do so due to their economic status, or, and that's important. That is in New Hampshire law. Doesn't mean that everyone interprets it the same way, but that's important to consider, and it's certainly one that we've gone by. Other things to consider as we move forward is there's no shortage of action at the New Hampshire legislature. Things are still going on, lots of big education decisions. And you know, we've been talking about open enrollment for 5 years. It's gotten a lot more serious lately. Some more conversations going on. They haven't passed it yet. We passed it. We're actually an open enrollment school. But probably, you know, hurrah, right? So, but this law would be to, you know, supersede any of that. And so they're having conversations continued through the beginning of April, and they did get a lot of feedback about, I would say, the poor thinking around funding, which seems to be a theme. And yes, equity for certain, but they have made some adjustments, some amendments to changing the funding process to mimic a little bit more like what a New Hampshire charter school payment process would look like, while at the same time Governor Ayotte signing into law that adequacy funding for public education is not to be at the judicial level, but at the legislative level, which, if you were to read the commentary around that, it would say that it's both shared between local communities and shared with the school. I don't think it's very hard to argue that it really just means that the local level is paying for it, because even the state funding is gathered through local taxation. So that is where we're at. Those are some sobering areas. As open enrollment continues to go on and play out, it will do so here in this district. How this district is set up for that world, we have to just keep on taking the next steps.
All right. So we will open this up for board conversation. There were a lot of pieces in this. Is there anybody who would like to go first? I think we'll put up the very first, let's go to your funding things first, the slides that talk about those two funding options. The idea is that this might be a way to fund things. Yeah, let's start there. We'll just put that on the screen. All right. Anybody who would like to begin, just grab the microphone from the stand. Make sure it's on.
Let me just highlight that.
Okay, just highlight those. Cool. On the budget reduction concepts review page? Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions about any particular areas? Great, I'll start then. It's prerogative. I generally have to go last, but nobody said that. Okay, so with the maintenance trust fund in particular is one area that I'm very concerned about touching. You said that there was, you think right now, like 190,000-ish. Was that your number?
Yeah, there's $190,000. There's $190,000 budgeted within the between the four, well, there are 4 cost areas, but 3 schools for the purpose of repair and maintenance. This money right here, like for instance, would not be able to pay for fuel, things of that nature, electricity, all of that. Yeah. So that's the only real area that you could even consider utilizing.
All right. Anybody want to delve into that further? Just take it off the stand. You can just take it right off the stand. Now, Alex said, yep. Press down. Down on this.
Can we just talk about this more, because this idea of using the facilities trust fund and how that would free up money, because this is from someone who sat on the finance committee and the facilities committee. I find this hard to follow. So let me see if I get this right, and then you just tell me all the ways that I'm wrong. So we have this money set aside in the trust fund for maintenance and repairs. We can not spend some of that money? Is that the suggestion that we had budgeted for?
Mm-hmm. You have $690,000 in the maintenance reserve trust fund right now.
Yep.
$350 in July. $350,000 will be put into that from taxation, because the warrant article passed. That's getting you close to $1 million. Now, $475,000 of that will be taken away because of the track.
Yep.
So you're getting closer to now $500,000. And then there's work that we are going to do for the summer for windows replacement and flooring and so forth within the elementary schools for the most part. So the extent that that happens, we could do more, or we could do what we originally planned, because we didn't know, we were going to have all of that. You could hold off on some of that just to make sure that you had money to back up your choice to reduce the budget in that respect, to have other things happen. Yes, you would reduce the idea would be you could choose to reduce the repair and maintenance lines in the budget, which would free you up to do something different in the budget with $190,000. Okay. This allows you to have kind of the idea is that you would have the ability to fall back on this if you needed.
Mm-hmm. And the risks that we know that are involved with that is that there would be a flood or, mold. We don't think there'll be mold because we have this wonderful new HVAC system, but whatever. I feel like we've seen many scenarios where we really needed to rely on this trust fund and have drained it, specifically around flooding. But who knows what Mother Nature has in store for us this year. So that's the risk, is that we would potentially not have that money there for when we need it.
The risk is that, and when you take something out of a budget that you're utilizing, that money tends not to be in the default budget the following year. And so, again, it's shifting funds around and not getting things. And it's like what we do with Chromebooks, basically. We've been trying to get a Chromebook replacement cycle for the last, 6 years or so, 5 years, and we keep on pre-buying that sort of thing and never getting it into the default budget. So there's a little risk that way. You're always in the risk of, something catastrophic happening. Some of that, sometimes that's, we do have insurance, but depends on what it is.
Okay.
And we'd have to pay up front anyway before even utilizing this. This is a reimbursement.
Gotcha. Okay. Questions?
So what are we saying we can use that money for? If there's 190,000, and there's some things we can and cannot.
Yeah, so the Maintenance Reserve Trust, I'm going to reiterate that I'm not recommending this. I'm saying this is something that you can do. The Maintenance Reserve Trust Fund is the only other area that you have access to apart from what you used last year, which right now is drained all but 30,000. So this is the only one that you have flexibility with, because it allows, the definition of it allows you to use it for anything within these buildings that's repair and maintenance related. So the repair and maintenance lines themselves in the budget could be reduced if you chose to use this for that purpose instead, or at least had this as the backup in case we needed it. That's what you're doing. I can tell you what the process would be if that were to happen. If that were to be chosen in the month of August, when we had, all of our audits done and everything, the district has received the first rounds of funds from taxation and so forth, and we knew what our hiring was and where we were at that point, we would then probably shift funds from salaries for temporary purposes into those lines so that they're filled. They would, or from the lines where we might have some historical, we have more of a historical chance of having money left over in those areas. We'd move that into those repair and maintenance lines so that we could use it during the year, because we always know we're going to have repair and maintenance. That happens all the time. Like, we are spending those lines all the time. And since I've overseen facilities this year, I know exactly what we're spending and utilizing it and the frequency that is used. That then, if we were into a spot, say halfway through the year, we're like, okay, we're in a situation in the budget where it doesn't look like we're going to have much of a surplus, like that kind of targeted 2% at the end of the year. We might say, the board, we've spent $100,000 in repair and maintenance already. Here are the receipts. This is what we spent it on. Can we have reimbursement from the Maintenance Reserve Trust Fund to fill those lines? That would be the idea. Or we don't need it. That's another possibility. And then you just take those $200,000 and you do window replacement the following summer.
So I look at this maintenance trust fund as like for some big things. I guess my questions are twofold. What have we spent so far for repairs for this year? And I think I would be willing to take some money out of that line, but not all of it. I don't want to be using the trust fund for bolts and nuts and a gallon of paint. That's not the purpose of it. It's the purpose to, like, big repairs.
Would you be able to give me the information on the amount we've spent so far for repair and maintenance? Okay, I'm asking Carrie for that information. I can say, what we can say is that we almost always spend our repair and maintenance lines. They're budgeted, and we repair and maintain the last 2 to 3 years in particular. When I first got here, the first 3 or so years, there was money left over there for whatever reason, but we have been repairing and maintaining, so we will spend the whole 190, I have no doubt. These are aging facilities. Things are breaking. So,
Well, then I don't think I want to wipe that line out
Yeah.
just so that we can balance the budget.
sure.
I just don't, I don't think that. The other thing I have a question on is on slide 10 and 11. In 10, the athletic activities, transportation's 109, and the coaches are 41, which I understand is a takeout, but in 11, it's back in, only reversed numbers.
Yeah, so basically, there's 300, so there, if you thought of it, the whole thing as, all right, to do athletics and activities the way that is currently done right now, you have an athletic activities director for the entire district. That is not in these numbers. That's already in the budget. You then have the rest of it, which is $383,000 roughly. Actually, technically, it's closer to $400,000 because our athletic trainer right now is actually at 1%, one whole FTE. But we were reducing the athletic trainer to an 80% employee anyway. That's why it's in here at 80%. So we looked at, okay, we take the athletic trainer out. We still need to create or revise our safety plan by doing that. But there are other ways to do it. We did it before. And we looked at all the costs. You know, a lot of costs are transportation. And so working on doubling up our transportation, having fewer away games, maybe not having a lot more intramural sports opportunities as well, all the way through JV. There are ways of doing that. And so just making those reductions in those areas, basically cutting your expenses in half is the idea. Keeping some money for transportation, keeping some money for coaches and refs. If you don't have as many refed games, then you don't have to pay for referees. And that adds up to be quite a bit when you have as many games as we have. And the model keeps all varsity sports, which we have definitely increased the number of varsity sports and other sports and activities in the last 6 years in particular.
So I guess I'm still not understanding it, because it looks like in slide 10, if you take those two red lines, 150 is coming out, but you look on slide 11, 150 is going back in.
Not going back in.
It's going, yeah. So right now, none of it is in there because it was paid for by the school board's funding from last year. And so yes, basically we're saying keep half of it out. It's not in the budget in the first place. And put half of it in so that we can move forward. These numbers represent approximately, a little bit less than, because there's some averaging, but the idea is 1.8 million had to be removed from the proposed operating budget. Many of these things were in the proposed operating budget. Most of them are in our current budgets right now and in our current offerings.
All right, could we go to the unanticipated revenue, please? So when we invited the community, and I'll show a spreadsheet in a minute, but we got a great deal of community input. And the vast majority of the community input, I think, also reflected quite a few of the board members with the concerns for both funding the pre-K and funding the Little Orioles. The consequences of not fully funding these has very broad ramifications, and all of us understand that. And so for now, leaving the maintenance trust out of it, which is kind of the only viable option with those three trusts. Could you talk to us about the possibility, and I'll be this specific, the possibility, what it would look like, nuts and bolts, to use unanticipated revenue to fund both the Little Orioles with any modifications to classrooms, and to fund the pre-K, again, with maybe modifications to classrooms, maybe partial, maybe just having one classroom, what tuition would look like, what outside opportunities, profits coming in. So could you talk for a while about what can we do to keep those two in particular?
So if we keep the Little Orioles in the budget, we don't really have unanticipated revenue. So we don't have that play because we fund it through revenue that's anticipated. That said, we can look at the model, staffing model. That's where the costs are, right? So the costs are in the staffing model. And right now we have several part-time people. When you have part-time people, there are fewer costs as a result. And we have 2 full-time school year people that would be in the budget. So the one idea is to remove one of those, have one full-time person who's over making sure it's all happening the way it needs to be, and then to make sure we have enough part-time people to do that. You could save from what is budgeted, and they're around 170,000. You could save probably in that model if put together carefully, understanding that you'd also have students involved in the process as well, which we do have. Then you could reduce that line to. You could reduce it to about 125,000 instead of 170. So finding the funds for that could be, that's half the $250,000 that I showed that we had, that we were able to find through grant funding. And leaving you another 125,000 left to partially fund something or add positions back in or what have you. If you were to, let's give a scenario. So if you were to say, all right, so 125, that's a classroom, that's a pre-K classroom, right? So you fund one and you say we're gonna have the other one, like another one. So we're gonna have one, so half of what we have, going back to what we used to have pre-COVID. So we do that. Let me explain that pre-COVID we had, and we're not losing, and we still have our half-day pre-Ks from 3- and 4-year-olds. That's important to note that remains untouched. The ones I'm talking about are the full-day 4-year-old pre-K. So we have 4 of those, 2 at Jaffrey Grade School, 2 at Rins Memorial School. Before COVID, we had started a process led by a board member, Charlie Eicher, to be able to start to get to that level of universal access to pre-K. We had 1 at Jaffrey Grade School and 1 at Rins Memorial School. If we were to go back to that model, so you're not losing, that you might want to rebuild, again at some point in time, you could pay for 1, for instance, and then you could say, we'll commit to getting the other one, which is a little risky, because you don't have the money up front as well, but you could ask people if they would pay. People can commit to that, and then we can enter into an agreement with those people to pay. The following year, you'd have to put that second one into the budget, so you're basically taking 3 out of the budget. And then also saying you're going to, use revenue to get it. That's an idea. That's an easy. There's you can mix and match all those funds. You can partially fund both of them and charge less or whatever you wanted to make it happen. But that would be the idea. There's an idea that the board could implement that and say, oof, I don't know. We're always going to have these expenditures, these expenses in our budget, and it's going to keep on, it's always going to be hitting that number. And so do we find other ways and other partnership ways within other organizations to come in and support us, that do this type of work? Maybe it's not something that the school district, does by itself. That's a question, that's a conversation we'd have to have. Keene State is an example of a place that did that. They just switched everything that they've done for years, kept their programming, but they farmed it out to another organization that that I think people have been fairly happy with. You could do the same thing down also just off the side. You could do the same thing with the Little Oriole Center. If we were to save that for a year, I recommend we look for an alternative way to do it in the future so that never hits our budget again, because I think it's going to be an issue every single year. And we have, thank you so much to the community for passing the JRSSA contract this year. Next year, there's going to be a JREA contract. 70 to 80% of the school budget is personnel, and the people doing the work need to be able to do the work. And so if we have to look at the whole system as we think about how to make things sustainable for the future.
All right, to stay on this topic. So in 2023, the board voted to use ESSER funds to create the universal classrooms for the pre-K, the 2 at each school. And we knew they could be funded for 2 years, and hoped that the budget would pass to fund again, and came close, and also came close to adding it as a warrant article instead, and followed community input and chose to not have a warrant article for it. What would it take right now? Because we can say, yes, we'll have a for-profit pre-K. And the fact is that we have to tell the teachers whether they have jobs by April 15th or April 30th. So we actually have to make any decisions involving faculty next Monday night. And the pre-K teachers are faculty. So now we have options to recall people. Should we say, yes, we're letting these positions go, but we can recall in a couple months? But what we're talking about is the idea of starting a for-profit preschool. And I know from experience that involves state input, that involves, there's all kinds of things that we need to have in place, including getting that funding. And most preschools, my understanding is that they get the money up front by May or June, at least for the September, fall time. And so so my question becomes, is this a reasonable ask to say we are going to try to go for profit in September? Or is it a reasonable ask to say we'll try to do that in November and see what happens in the fall? Or is there the staff currently who are managing the preschool? I don't really mean the teachers, but I know that there's administration that helps manage preschool enrollment. Are there staff in place that can actually run a for-profit program?
Yeah, so certainly from a standpoint of billing and accepting funds, we have a business office that does that in different ways. We'd have to do a lot more of it. It's a lot, it would be more work and more time and following up with that. I mean, we, have a difficult time getting people to pay their food bills. So, but you would typically have people tell you in advance, this is how we're going to do this, this is the contract that they're going to sign. And if they don't pay, you then let them know that you either get a payment plan or you have this on this day, this will be the last day, unfortunately. The staff, I'll give you an example of systems and the perhaps unanticipated consequences. When we put athletics fully, specifically athletics, activities as well, but athletics fully back into place, we had been able to reduce a couple custodians and a groundskeeper during that time frame because we didn't think we were going to have as much usage of those facilities. When we put it back into place, we didn't put those back in. And so there's been a fair amount of stress on the organization. Similarly, what we did do, was we made sure that we put our funding that we had for an administrative position, whether it was an SAU or whether it was something else, we put that into the school system so that it would be closest to where the kids were at. And we knew that that individual would help and does actually oversee a lot of the scheduling of pre-K and the work that has to happen and the reporting and so forth. So there is a lot more. I mean, anytime you have more staff, then there's more supervision and so forth that goes along with it. And so we do have to think about that. I think that the board would have to consider what type of risk it wanted to have. For instance, we know that it is likely through our revenues that we will have $200,000 at the end of probably the summer, but it will be accounted for the end of this year by the time all the revenue comes in. That would be something we would never be allowed to spend anyway because it would be over our budget. We anticipate safely that $200,000 will be there. The board will have the opportunity to either have that offset taxes, or you'll retain it, because you can retain up to 5% of your net assessment. That's not even close. That's like 20% of your net assessment, maybe a little less. So you'll have that in your back of your mind if you needed to for an emergency type situation. That's what I mean by risk. You have to think about what type of risk you want to have. I can't imagine that it would be it would not be good business practice. So this is what I will say. It is not good business practice to say we're going to fully fund everything and we're going to, let's say, we're going to get $300,000 in revenue when we haven't ever done it before. To do that type of programming. So managing your expectations on that is going to be, I think, important. It's not that it couldn't happen. It's just that, there are schools right now in the state of New Hampshire who have, who gave people contracts, and now they have to honor those, but they are not in a place to be able to pay for those contracts. And so we do not want to be into that spot. That's not something our district wants to be in, and it's not something that our staff wants to be in. So anything that we do, we want to make sure that there's reasonable backup for it, that we're going to be able to pay for those things. Now, to get to the heart of your question. I know. the heart of your question. Yep, is that you could, if you, for instance, wanted to say, we have enough money to keep one in there, or one in each school, or something like that. We decided that's going to happen. And then we go through and get the funding, as we ask people for that, then we can recall teachers to that. to have the programming, yes.
That literally was my question. Is there a reasonable risk, in your educated opinion, to be able to put back one preschool at Jaffrey, one preschool at Ringe, meaning there's two classrooms then? One was special ed funding, and say that quick, and I know it's more complicated than that statement. And then one is more tuition-based or more district funded, with the plan that we would be really spending a great deal of time hoping to get that third classroom back at each school and find a way of tuition or programming. But anyways, the risk is... No, it's okay. So the risk is less than many other things. Like, there's not quite as much risk if we ask to do that and keep the little Orioles. There's not heavy risk in doing those two, because we do have some unanticipated funds coming in this summer from our net assessment. Correct?
You will very likely, high likelihood of having at least $200,000 to put and carry into your net assessment due to higher than anticipated revenues. It is possible that we'll have other funds left over. I mean, I don't know, but it's not going to be a lot. So that's something you can consider. Again, similar to the facilities, you know, that's something you could consider as well within your decision making. And what I can let you know is I guarantee you the $250,000 that through our grant fund usage, we can make that happen. And so some of that can be used for one and the other, if that was something the board desired to do.
All right, I monopolized that. Next.
2 positions, 6th grade case manager and DW behavior interventionist. Both of them at $95,000. How about now? Both of them at $95,000. You said neither of those are filled right now. How long have they not been filled? And who's currently doing those, taking care of that position?
I'm going to ask the Director of Student Services to answer that question.
The 6th grade case manager position has been open for this year, and it's being covered by we usually have 3 special ed case managers at the middle school. We currently have 2. Between the 2 of them, we've meshed those jobs into one, in addition to the building coordinator that works from 6 through 12, covering a lot of extra supports to make sure that those things can get done. The district-wide behavior interventionist was a new position that we put in last year. So every year we pay for a contracted BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst. The cost of that is really close to a full-time position within the district. So we put that in last year. We were unable to find somebody who fit that. We are instead contracting that position, so it's not a full-time position. So it's been open now for this whole year. We do require some behavior interventionist. The best method would be to have a full-time person within our district that's here all the time. Right now, for that same cost roughly, we have 2 days a week. So do you have other?
No, so
okay.
it's been a year.
It's been this school year, yeah. Yes. It doesn't mean they're not needed.
Those 2 really have to do with, we have a clause in the JREA contract that we would look at attrition first and also open positions. And so we try to stay true to what we've agreed. We have to stay true to what we've agreed, but I mean, that specific one, it's important that we stay true to it because you know, it's in there for a reason.
I have some more questions about the Little Oriole Center because I think it is a valuable service to your staff. I had some questions just based on actually what you just said a few moments ago about reducing staff. What would the figures, if you reduced the staff, I don't know that you threw out a figure of what that would then be.
Yeah, I had estimated it'd be, you could have a $45,000 savings. Again, that's a ballpark because you have to get part-time people if you do that. If you reduced a full-time position, depends whether position, had benefits and all that sort of thing, right? So I'm taking away that higher number and then also replacing it with like 20,000 just for part-time individuals to get around 125. And then I am certain through staff pay the payment that they have monthly, as well as any other revenue stuff that would be covered anyhow.
The balance of.
The balance would be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was my question,
yeah.
is if by implementing the reduction and then.
The only thing the reduction
tuition.
does is it gives you more flexibility with what you're able to do, in here, because it's not, you're getting the revenue anyway.
Yeah.
But this would guarantee that you are able to, what it would also do is guarantee that you keep your prices down for these individuals.
But retain the service altogether.
But retain the service altogether.
You want it there.
Yeah. We are
matter what it
actually working in that model right now, just temporarily. And it's a doable thing. For 3 years, I will say, we've had a couple different models. We started with 3 full-time individuals and then kind of have gone, and it's been difficult to get it to where it's really hummed the way we want it, because I'm the backup. So I was there today. It was great. I got to meet some new kids. So, but we have had a lot more, we've had a lot more ability to hire people in the last year. It's been actually a pretty good workflow.
Are there plans, I know we're talking about just kind of retaining it, but expanding it? Like, per se, if there were enough seats in that program to then open up to the community for more tuition?
Sure. So I'll answer that in two ways. One, 'cause I had actually approached certain municipal organizations in the last couple of years, just in case we were in that spot, whether they wanted to utilize the service. There wasn't a lot of interest because of where people are in life within those areas, not having younger children. I think, as we progressed, and it's very clear to most people, especially if you're from the outside and seeing what was going on, that this district was just doing some amazing work in the area of early childhood. And so while we did not have this conversation as a board, but I could certainly imagine really providing, once it's stabilized, a service, given if we had space, a service for the entire community to provide affordable childcare. And it would have been great to keep universal access to pre-K for a variety of reasons. So have this system all the way through to support the the parents in our community. And we know that being a young parent now is very different than even when I was a young parent 20 years ago. And the costs are significantly more, the resources are less, and not only does the research, especially with a pre-K situation, talk about the importance of the child's learning and future, long-range community and individual progress, but it's a huge support for families who need to work and need to provide for their families in the here and now. And that's part of being a robust, healthy community. But to, again, answer your question specifically, we would look for other ways to get revenue if we had space.
That was the purpose in asking, was making the revenue bigger than the expense there. But Yeah. I did have other questions, but they're gone out of my mind now, so I'll put the microphone down.
And to clarify, there was a community member in the thing that asked about the Little Orioles Center's summer program. We do not offer the summer program, and that was kind of a one-shot kind of thing, I think. Or if that's, try to, yeah, so that's not something that's funded now. All right.
Can I go again? Sorry, it's me again.
No, Ally.
I know I have a lot of questions about the Little Orioles Center, because again, it's important. It's important for retention, it's important for our community. You've got kids on wait lists everywhere trying to get into daycare centers. Like, I feel like this could be substantial. The structure of the tuition, you had mentioned in one of the meetings previously that it had increased over time. I'm curious what your structure is. Like, how did you base that? What was the intent of the increases moving forward?
Sure. So when in the national conversation around early childhood expenses, I mean, we certainly know that people are paying upwards of 25, 30% of their incomes. That doesn't work in this situation. People would stay home and not work. That's an option, but that also causes them, because there isn't a smaller amount of income coming in, to be able to do other things and so forth and keep on moving forward. So we try to estimate our average person, what they make. And so this is not perfect, so there's no sliding scale here. We charge everyone the same, and we don't give breaks for multiple kids or anything like that. But we keep the price down for everyone, trying to hit that 8%. Where we don't hit it, we're probably closer to like 10% of their income. And so we started, when I did a survey, I had about 50 people respond when we were even thinking about doing this. And the individuals who had children and indicated that they would use it said that right now they could afford, about between $500 and $700 a month, which is a lot less than what most people end up paying. So we started it off at $550. It's now at $650, and we would continue to increase it as we go along, and we might have to, increase it to $750 or $8. I think there are some places in the local community that are around that $850 spot, but. Yeah, it's looking to try to create something, a model. I mean, we had the building already. We pay for the electricity already. We have all of that going on already within the facility, so that's already paid for in the whole school system. So some of our costs are already, there. So if we could, find a way to either partner or do things within our own organization to keep on expanding and building that, so there was quality, high quality, affordable childcare, that would be amazing to do, and I'd be up for it.
And your current tuition costs for that, how close are they coming to what would be the remainder of that line item? You mentioned it would come close to funding itself.
Yeah, right now, it would be, with the people we have there right now, we have about between 16 and 20. Some of them are drop-ins, but regulars. And so we are close to we'd be at 100,000 in revenue there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly, because I do want to get to the community concerns. But as far as saving these programs and funding them through other means, I think that's, again, what we've been asking about, and thank you, Ruben, for that. I do think there is that, I want this to be sustainable. We did one thing last year where we expended these funds and ended up not being able to get it in the budget next year, because there was a big jump, right? We saw a big jump in the budget. And what I'm hearing about, accepting this additional revenue, in my understanding of it, is that You know, we'll take pre-K, for example, we'll take those 2 classrooms, let's say we are able to completely fund it through, you know, tuition or some other means. We'd see that number, even though it would be offset by some revenue, we'd see that number in the budget the next year. And I worry, right, that, you know, we have this budget of 32 million this year, and I think the majority of voters look at that final number, and I know, Ruben, you brought this up a couple times. So I just think as a board, we're gonna, let's not be surprised, right, if we say, oh, this is great, we're able to fund this at no cost to the taxpayer, which we kind of do with the Little Orioles, and we could do with pre-K and even, say, sports, that budget number, again, is gonna go from 32 million to something higher addition to whatever it had. So there's not that great understanding, and I think we just need to be aware of the risk that that budget number the next year is going to jump, even if the tax impact won't be there. The interpretation of the community could be like, listen, we said the budget was 32, now you have this big jump. Again, where we did it last year and, you know, it got cut back down. I worried that that would happen again. I just think we need to be aware of it. Not to not do it, but let's not be surprised if a year from now, you know, there's some feedback that, like, we didn't get the message, we wanted you to cut the budget. Even though it would be kind of a tax neutral thing. Just want everyone to recognize. And
Because simultaneously, everything else will be also moving in that budget. So, you know, possibly the price of fuel for transportation, potentially, you know, your healthcare costs, you know, right? They've been, you know, that could be another $500,000 up. You have, you know, other sorts of things happening simultaneously that even if these are a great deal in a sense, and they're not really even let's say the numbers are not even that significant in the sense that they're not climbing, like other things are going to climb, that will bring attention to the budget, and then us at least have to have conversations about a lot of these other areas again, because that's really what happened this year.
Any other questions?
I'll go. I'm going to ask a horrible question that I don't want to ask, but it is something that we heard about from many people in the community, and let me back up and say how much I appreciate all of the emails and input that we got. I remember this is our 3rd time that since I've been a board member that we've had people vote against our budget, and the first time I don't think anyone showed up when we talked about the default budget. So I appreciate the input that we're getting. One of the comments that we heard, one of the questions we heard, I'm sorry for bringing this up, but is why do we keep a full-time activities director? Very difficult to talk about, but I feel like we have to address this. And there are other school districts that manage this, at least the athletics portion, with a part-time or 2 part-time people. And so I guess the question that we keep hearing is what makes us different? And I think I know that answer, which is that our athletic director is actually part-time athletic director, part-time activities director, part-time facilities. And so we have multiple positions being rolled into one. And so I'm wondering if you had something to add to that. And you're putting this up, which is amazing, because I wrote down in my notes when you were talking about this that there's that game of like kids play where they pull the sticks out and there's marbles on the top, and if you pull enough sticks out, then all the marbles fall down. And that's what I think about this model, is that if we keep pulling out sticks, the marbles, which are our students and our system, will collapse. But in any case, that's my visual. I'm wondering if you want to address that horrible question I just asked.
I'll say, but I can go after you if you want.
All right, if it's okay, I prepared something. aligned to it, and then Ruben will fill in the blanks and fix what I have to say. Okay. All right, so what I'd like to do is put up the community input. And hang on one second. I'm going to do this, and if you wouldn't mind giving me the remote there. All right. So before I read this, before I show you just these few slides, I worked the last couple weeks on preparing and writing what I want to say, ditched every single one of them and just wrote really quickly. But I just want to be really careful how I say this. The first thing I need to say is that those slides of everything we're cutting, I know that we're honing in on a couple of pieces that we're really worried about losing. Those items on the screen were people, and we didn't talk about the vast majority of them. And I hope that you know that it's breaking our hearts looking at the elementary teachers and not saying anything, looking at the librarians and not saying anything, looking at the construction trades program that nobody is talking about, that's been eliminated. These things break our hearts. Please know that we might be up here and teasing each other a little bit, trying to lighten this up a little bit to get through it. But we haven't slept thinking about this stuff. Now for Christine's and all of ours. 12 years ago, the board voted to hire Ruben and has continually renewed his contract because he consistently is providing programming, hiring top quality employees, and tirelessly creating opportunities to promote the board's vision of the best public education for our students and children. Our vision is one of pride in all of our students' many achievements academically, athletically, and developmentally. The board is going to work very hard this year to update our strategic plan and vision for this district. We will look at policies, finances, facilities, and educational initiatives. We will be asking for input and recommendations along the way as we look to building a sustainable and fundable public school system, because the truth is it's only on us. The state is refusing to help. So how do we do this between our two towns is our next question. While we welcome all ideas to help us facilitate this, it needs to be understood that we are not willing to go backward. We are not willing to go back to old, outdated, inequitable models that do not provide safely for all of our students. We asked at the last meeting to have emails sent, and we got dozens and dozens. It was amazing. It was so helpful for us to move forward with this. So I'm going to put them on the screen, and Alex, you're watching the online. What I want to make sure is that sometimes with Zoom you can't see everything, so can you just tell me if I need to make the view down to 80% as we move forward? Can you see that on the full screen? Because I'll change the view if you can't. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to read these out, but like I said, the vast majority of input involved keeping our pre-K program as intact as possible, and many people had ideas. Most of them involved tuition-based, which we are very open to looking at, as you heard tonight. I'll stay up there for a moment. Loved the detailed research we got on this. That was great. The link in this is from UNH. It was a study that Christine found that really outlined how incredibly important having a pre-K program is in our educational system to moving kids through their progress. It's just, bar none, early childhood really is the way to create excellence in our schools. All right, Little Oreo Center, we got some great feedback on that. This is very much summarized. We got a lot of feedback, it was great, and this was all shared with the board. It all informed our decisions for next week. Okay, we got a lot of feedback about that athletics and activities. We got a great one from a student. That's the one here that gives the numbers about the total athletes that we use. That's ridiculous. The total athletes that take advantage of our programs. And so there's ideas in here. We, as I said, as we are moving forward to create our strategic plan, this in particular is an area that we are going to be really looking at because so much of this is driven in conjunction with facilities, finance, and policy, as well as educational input. So this involves not just the community, it involves all of our committees and all of our goal setting. We have policies that are extremely strict as far as what we allow for donations, what we allow for advertising, how we allow our athletes and activities to be used by the public and by businesses. And there's some real lines that get crossed into exploitation. It's very easy to do. It's not hard. And we are extremely strict in how we protect our students. We need to look at that. And we need to say, are we throwing the baby out in the bathwater sometimes? So this is an area that we're going to have a lot of conversation about moving forward. We are continuing to get input on this, but without compromising the models that the board has unanimously voted on year after year after year. We want to make sure that we're taking advantage of our community resources and to the best of our ability, keeping our kids safe. So this is a big conversation. It's not a conversation for tonight, not a conversation for Monday night. This is a huge conversation that the board is committed to having this year, starting right away. Okay, here's more on the athletics and activities. Various ones, keep JV, keep varsity, you know, at the cost of getting rid of the other extracurriculars. Same time, keep extracurriculars, lose the varsity. Like, there's a lot of conversation to have here. There were a number of miscellaneous ideas. A lot of these came from board members as well. So all of these are areas that we definitely want to look at. And some of them are, you know, being put into what we're doing now with the budget. I'm very interested in the transportation route idea. And in particular, I really think that we need to be looking at our transportation, especially with the cost of fueling. But the Department of Education has a very specific legal aspect to who we transport. And we need to look at that and see what is reasonable for our school district in that. So I'll just say that. All right, and I believe that's it for that. Okay, there is one thing that I wanted to show in line with what Christine also was saying. Let me just see if I can get this up real quick. So I went back when I was seeing the number of the athletics and activities conversations happening in an area that we're not looking to cut very much. It just brought out a lot of heavy feeling. And so I went back to our July 21st board meeting when we had a presentation on the areas that our activities and athletics are serving. And I just wanted to show the board, I just shared this with the board, like, this is all there. So I took the presentation and I put it into this table. And this talks about the athletics over here on your left, and then the activities are on the right. I highlighted the top part in orange because I cannot stress enough how crucial it is that we have these leadership programs, and that they serve hundreds and hundreds of our students. It's just extraordinary what these leadership programs do. So this area is truly crucial to our activities in the school. And then we have all these other things that we offer. Now, we weren't able to offer all of them this year. This was July's offerings, and I think that there were more that were coming through since then. I did not update it correctly. I also wanted to make sure to highlight in yellow the specific JV and varsity, just to have a picture of what we're talking about scale-wise. All right. I think that is the limit to my presentation on this. And now we are ready for opening it up to public comments.
Can I just comment on the
that's right.
last slide that you had?
The miscellaneous?
Nope,
Okay.
not that one, the one you created. So I'm looking at the one, because I think this is the answer to your question in part. I mean, I have a lot to say about that in general, as I do about so many of these topics, and but I won't keep on going. But what I will say is, I'll go back, well, maybe it's best to...
You're not on?
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking for my own benefit. The area of what makes schools high-achieving schools, one of those areas, nothing by itself, you know, you don't see high-achieving schools just have one thing or two things. It's the whole package. It's a great system. One of them was leadership opportunities, and more important than opportunities is actually, again, a collective leadership approach, both with your staff as well as with your learners. Our learners here have choice and voice. They learn to lead. Now, there are informal ways of leading, and there are formal ways of leading. Part of the work that our current activities director has done and brought to our school was the Link Crew and the Web. So one's for middle school, one's for high school. They are leadership groups of individuals. They are open to a wide array of individuals within schools. Like you said, hundreds of people are involved in leadership in all those areas. We've had Interact for quite some time. That's a big organization as well. These are crucial for the health and well-being and proper operation of the school. As a matter of fact, while it seems to have been a political thing to hang signs around the 2025 School of Excellence, I will say that it is a real and prestigious award, one that was earned, one that symbolizes the work and the trajectory the school is on due to its systems and so much more. And about a third, if we were to break down all the rubrics and everything that the visiting teams, went through to see if this school was the chosen one, about a third of what they commented on was our culture, our leadership for our kids, our choice, and it is not separate from, it is woven throughout all of what we do, both during the school day and after the school day, on the weekends, and so forth. It is designed that way, and we're very fortunate to have the leadership at the SAU and district level as well to make sure that this is all operational.
Okay, so we will open it up to public comments. We are going to stay with our 2-minute timer, and we are going to be strict on that. So even if you've brought, pages to read, we're going to try to talk fast. And again, we're not making decisions tonight. And so I will put up, do I even have the agenda? All right, let me see if I have the agenda here. I have so many other things because I have to put the policy up. All right, I'm getting to the agenda. And then I'll put the calendar up. And so if you could come to the microphone here, and if you could state your name and town of residence, and we'll get the agenda up as we, what? Oh, yeah, I work there. All right. I go back and forth between their policies and ours. All right, we're going, look at that. You guys have a better picture here. All right. Agendas. Yep, so anybody who wants to get up, come on up.
Alex is raising his hand. Alex is raising his hand.
Ah, Alex, what do you want? Alex. He's hiding. So you have online people? Okay, yep. So we're going to take the floor first, and then I will definitely go to the online.
Susan Shaw Sarles, Ringe. For those of you on the board that don't know me, I retired in June 2023 after 25 years of being the JJS principal. I worked at RMS for a while too, before that. So the committee that Ruben referred to, studying preschool, first reported to the board in November 2016, 10 years. I'm extremely disappointed that in this district, in a decade, preschool is not institutionalized as part of our system. Very disappointing. One of the pieces of data we reported at that time was that of our kindergarten screenings that we have before they come in, children with no preschool experience, 61% were below the readiness expectations for kindergarten. Children with preschool experience, 24%. So not twice as many, three times as many. During the budget process, there's a lot of talk about senior citizens and the impact on taxes. Well, look at my white hair, I'm a proud senior citizen. I can tell you my family was never so stressed financially than when my children were 2 and 4 years old, or 4 and 6 years old. One of the reasons I became a principal, I'm going to be honest, is because I needed to support my family, and it was a way to earn more money, even though I had to work summers and be away from them. So think about cutting preschool. You're talking about, what, 56, 60 families. You talked about the financial impact of daycare if we eliminate Little Oreo Center. What about the financial impact on those families who maybe now have to provide childcare, who maybe now have to have one parent in the family stop working? So I beg you, look at other options. You may not be able to keep all 4, but at least keep 1 in each school. That's where we started with district funding. For a number of years, the ESSER funds only allowed us to add the extra 1 per school to get to 2 each. Thank you.
You didn't say that anything about out of district, but I'm assuming the same rules apply as last board meeting. I'm Erica Jordan, one of the co-presidents of JREA. I live in Peterborough, but I teach at Conant Middle High School. And Shauna Smith is also one of the co-presidents of JREA. So may I speak?
Hi. Yep. Yes, I believe union representation is exempt from the residency requirement.
Okay. All right. So good evening. On behalf of the JREA board executive board, we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. First and foremost, we want to emphasize our shared commitment to the students of this district, As educators, our primary focus is always on maintaining consistent, high-quality learning environments where students feel supported, engaged, and able to succeed. With that in mind, we strongly encourage the board to prioritize decisions that reduce disruptions to student learning. Stability in the classroom matters not only for academic progress, but also for students' well-being and emotional support. We also ask that as you weigh potential reductions, you consider the impact on the people who make that stability possible. Our educators and staff build relationships with students, create safe and inclusive environments, and carry the daily work of teaching and supporting this community. Preserving those relationships is critical. For that reason, we urge the board to pursue solutions that result in the least possible loss of staff positions, including those within our collective bargaining unit. Reductions in the staffing not only affect the individuals involved, but also increase class sizes, limit course offerings, and place additional strains on remaining staff, all of which ultimately impacts our students. We recognize the financial challenges facing the district, due in no small part to the state's continued failure to fulfill its constitutional obligation to fully and fairly fund public education. And we understand that there is no easy solution. Can I finish my paragraph? Is that okay? It's just very quick. We do believe that thoughtful, student-centered decision-making paired with a commitment to maintaining staff levels as much as possible will best serve our schools and our community. Thank you.
I am Jameson Van Dyke. I'm from Ringe. I guess I got 2 minutes. So I just want to thank everyone that's on this board for what you guys do. I got to meet with a few of you this week and started thinking about, like, man, the time and the effort and stuff that you guys have to put to be on this board. I'm on some boards myself, and I get it. It's a lot. You guys are in the fire lately, that's for sure. And I get a lot of phone calls from the different groups that I'm in, different circles I'm a part of. I got 5 young kids myself, and yeah, they are expensive. And the taxes, they don't stop going up. And a lot of our investments in our businesses, they're all in Ringe. We pay a lot of taxes, put a lot of money into these schools. And used to play on these courts. A lot of these banners up here, they're from my brothers, myself, my friends. We were very, very successful, and we took a lot of pride in what we did. And the sports, that's what drove us all the time to do better in school and to get us into college. And, you know, there was competition there. Like, not everyone made the team. Not everyone did. I often didn't make the team. I had to fight to make the team. I want to bring that back to this district from the youth. I want the athletic programs at this school to have less friction and to start to work with the rec programs, because right now there's friction. I could get 2,000 signatures today to get rid of the athletic director position, you know, and these are all taxpayers. And they're all speaking very loudly, and the writing is on the wall. That is why there's, like, the budget proposed cuts that happen year after year lately, and it's going to continue to happen, trust me, okay? And so I'd like to see us come together and figure this out, but really think through more than just what was on that list today for the cuts, and know that we truly all want a better place for our kids here. We might not all agree, but we truly want the best for our kids.
I want to thank you, Mr. Van Dyke, because I did, Chris forwarded your email, and I got it today, and I didn't have a time to put the information in there. But when I mentioned that the board is going to be working to create this strategic plan, and especially looking at policies and looking at partnerships, you will be emailed. Please expect that. The people who have been emailing us with these concerns will be sought first to help us put this together. Thank you for that.
to come down. Shauna Smith-Renge. If we wanted what's best for this district, we would have voted through the school budget. And I'm going to be honest with you, 21 years here teaching sixth grade, I am so tired of hearing that if we just did this, we'd get the votes. If we just did that. I have to tell you, so many people this year came together as a group, did the research, proposed, planned, tried to educate people. So to say that, athletic drives everything is frustrating when in the classroom, it is so challenging to try to get all students what they need. When our class sizes go up, we have less resources and we're focused on sports. I can stand up here and say this. My timer never went off, I just want to let you know. Because I was a 3-sport athlete at Conval. But what got me a job? My education. And I'm sorry, but I am really having a hard time with this. Plus, I don't think a lot of people know the time it takes to do what an athletic director and an activities coordinator does. I know this because I have had people close to me do this job and not get paid a lot of money to do this job. And it takes a certain skill set to do this job. So to put it out there that it would be so easy to find somebody to do this, or somebody, from the school would volunteer, that's a heavy load to carry. So I think it's important to educate yourself before you throw out plans and stuff like that about how easy it would be and how people are not going to vote for this school because of certain things. That list that went up there took a ton of time for people. And I just wanted to relay that we need to be looking at making the environment in our classroom the best we can for our students. Those are the people that we serve. Thank you.
All right, Alex, please do come on up, but let's take somebody from online.
I would like to make a motion to allow students to speak.
Christine has made a motion to allow students to speak. Is there a second? Chris seconded that. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. So Sandy, I didn't get yours. Could I do hands? I'm not sure what this was. So if we could do hands, please. If you are in favor of allowing students to speak tonight, please raise your hand. If you are opposed to having students speak tonight, please raise your hand. If you abstain from having students speak tonight, please raise your hand. All right. Passes 3-0-4. And so they get to speak. Thank you. All right. So, Alex, do you have somebody online? Yes, let's do one online.
Hi, this is Leslie McLean from Jaffrey. I'd like to say that first, I agree with the school board members who weighed in on using the facilities trust fund in a way to try to help the budget along. I think it's an enormous risk to take, and having lived through the floods in the SAU the one summer and other problems we had with asbestos, I just don't think it's wise. The other thing I saw on the list of possible suggestions was to look at SAU exempts or non-exempts, just the SAU business office in general and consolidation. I'd like to say that when the SAU's exempt and non-exempt handbooks were reviewed this year, while there was a survey that was given to the members of these two groups, there was no discussion with us as a group. And if you do decide to look at this path as a way to save funds, to consolidate positions, that it is a more collaborative effort, because my opinion at the current time, and I am, I know, like, I'm biased. I sit there and I work there every day, but people are working at above maximum capacity. And if there is to be serious thought about consolidating these positions, that has to be done very carefully and fully collaborative with the existing staff, or I think there'll be a real rupture in not only staffing, but the ability to get anything done. And some of your proposals tonight talked about shifting more work into the SAU. So please just keep that all in mind, that this is not an unlimited resource that we can just keep reconsolidating jobs and giving people more work to do. Sooner or later, that will break. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the floor, come on up. Hi, name please.
Hello, my name is Roscoe Lewis, and I'm 15. I just now started my freshman year at Conant Middle High in September, and I came here from Kentucky. And down there, I knew a lot of people, and most of them were very stressed and under a lot of pressure amidst all the work that they were doing. And the environment was just not fun or enriching for anyone. You could tell that nobody liked it there, but here, I mean, everyone seems enthusiastic and they act their age. The old school that I used to go to had a low budget and a superintendent who was embezzling funds, which really did not help. But I think that just to put into consideration that the environment that is being nurtured here could be helpful to all of our futures, because we are the future. I don't want to be some number on a spreadsheet. I'm a person. I understand that life is dictated by budgets, but it hurts. I understand that you all have been put in a difficult position to, you know, cut some places, but thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Alex, do we have somebody online? Hang on one second, Nick. Yeah.
Hi, it's Pat Martin. And I wanted to ask about the idea of pay for play for athletics and the non-discriminatory policy. Wouldn't it be possible to have an adder that was tied to free and reduced lunch percentage and either fundraise for that or apply for grants? Thank you.
Thank you for that. That is something that we are definitely open to looking into. And yep, go ahead. And Alex, do you have more people online? Okay, if they can wait one moment, go ahead, Nick.
Nick Hill, Jaffrey. I have a ton of questions, but I'm going to leave it to one right now, and then I'll come back up if there's more time. In conversation tonight about the track, right, it's going to cost $470,000 to resurface the track and redo the track. It might be thoughtful to reconsider that this year. We're in an unprecedented time, and we might be able to use that money for something better than that.
All right. Go ahead, Alicia, and then we'll take the online person.
Alicia Stenderson Jaffrey. I had something prepared to say, and you guys already all got that feedback from working together, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I guess I just want to reiterate the value in preserving our preschool program. We know the long-term impact that has on academics, having spent a significant amount of time this past year doing a lot of community engagement and advocacy, trying to educate people using facts and actual data about what is happening in this district. That was a message that we heard repeatedly, is that there's a desire in this community for academic excellence and continuing to pursue that and increase our excellence around academics. And we know that the data shows us that preschool is where it's at. I guess I just also want to address the frustration that I have with this community and certain members of that community who show up at the last minute without having been involved in the process and try to completely bypass democratic processes in a highly egotistical way of suggesting that they have the power to get enough names to basically do whatever they want. That's not how it works, and that's not how it should work, and hopefully never how it will work in this country. So please get involved earlier, and in a way that is a little bit more collaborative rather than suggesting that you can just do whatever you want. That's all I want to say.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to caution the community to please make sure that comments are directed to the board and that we are speaking as least offensively as possible. How's that? All right. Alex, do we have somebody online?
Hi, my name is Jake Kramer. I'm from Jaffrey, New Hampshire. So I just wanted to speak up real quick and maybe reiterate some of the things that Mr. Van Dyke did speak to, because I think people underestimate the impact of what sports do to an adolescent, right? So I was a student, and I will proudly admit at this point in my life that I wasn't the most studious kid throughout my middle school, high school career. And if it wasn't for sports, I wouldn't be where I am today, where I have an established career, a family. I'm currently sitting as the Little League board president now. So it really does. And again, I went to Hollis Brookline High School. So Conant was an arch rival of ours through basketball in the time of me in high school. And they beat us every year. Basketball championships, we were always there, and it was never enough to get past Conant. So they were always considered the best, right? And I can just say that sports changed my life, right? If it wasn't for that, it drove me to excellence. It drove me to want to be a better human being. It drove me to turn my life around. And I think that taking that away is whether, right, wrong, or different, if everybody agrees with it or not, we're robbing our children of that, right? And there's 550 kids this year in our Little League that are all either current students with you guys or students that are up and coming through the program. And it's something to consider. You'd hate to lose that many more students over the loss of sports. But I guess I'm just reiterating, the importance of what sport can do to a young person's life, and taking that away would not be good. That's all. Thank you. I appreciate all of your time. Thank you very much.
I want to respond to that real quick. I hope that the votes of the people who are coming forward saying that we're robbing of athletics reflect the fact that our budget was cut by $1.8 million. So I hope these votes actually wanted to support the athletic program. I'm not seeing that we're cutting the athletics that we're robbing the athletics of a vast amount compared to the fact that we're robbing students of 4 elementary teachers and 3 middle high school teachers, plus the pre-K, plus the Little Orioles. So I guess I just need to make sure people are actually looking at what is actually being cut. Okay. All right. Jen?
Jennifer Horn, Renge. I don't ever do this, and I'm talking now as a mom. I've had 4 children graduate from Conant Middle High School, well, from Conant High School. I have children who graduated early as a valedictorian and children who were born with a variety of educational disabilities and needed a variety of supports. None of my children are athletic. They just aren't. 3 of them participated in as many sports as they possibly could. They also participated in every extracurricular that was appropriate for them. I have band members, I have D&D players, I have the National Honor Society. They needed all of those things. They needed all of those things. And that is what we offer here. We are not cutting sports. We are reducing our offerings. We are not cutting, you cannot just cut activities. They are required to make rounded community members that are able to go out into the world and be human. And I just need people to hear that. I think that last year when we said we were cutting sports, people have decided we've cut sports. Please look again. We did not cut sports. But what we did cut was a whole bunch of AP offerings. So let's talk about the kids who can't get into Ivy League or high-end colleges, because no one's talking about putting those teachers back in, to put our AP classes back in. No one's talking about 26 kids in elementary school classrooms. But we're worried about basketball and preschool. Also been a preschool teacher, early childhood, very important, but it is no more important than the rest of these things that we're not talking about.
All right, Alex, do we have anybody online? Okay. All right. Okay. Nick, you want to speak one more time? Okay.
Yeah, this was an informative session, right? Where we
Say it
can
again?
speak, we can speak as much as we want?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Well, for the 2 minutes, yeah.
All right, Nick from Jaffrey. I guess I want some clarification around, it's all convoluted. So in August, we put a slide up, and I have a picture of the slide, and it brought back certain items to the tune of 1.1 million. And included in that were a music teacher and an SAU director. And nowhere in this presentation that we saw last meeting, nor this meeting, make any mention or note of the music teacher or the SAU director. Okay? And nowhere does it state anything about co-curricular activities either. Okay, so there's a lot of assumptions, but we're just all stuck here because it doesn't make any sense, or myself. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. It makes no sense. So those 3 things, if I'm doing the math and I'm an educated person, like those aren't included in this year's bringing them back, or additions or subtractions, or however you play it all out. It's not on any of those slides. So I guess some confirmation or clarification around that would be helpful, because I don't know if they're just automatically being absorbed into the default, but they can't, because they weren't in last year's. So where are they? I'd like an answer to that, please.
So the music teacher was a position that the board put back into circulation, we'll call it, because it wasn't necessarily put back into the budget. There was a change to that due to the music teacher going to another role. We had an opportunity to keep our library staffed completely at the elementary level. So there was a trade-off there. So teacher for teacher. SAU director, that was the goal, was to make sure that we had our SAU as fully staffed as possible. When pre-K was put back into the mix, it was necessary to provide more support for the elementary schools, as well as because they were implementing curricular initiatives, and so the same amount of money was put into keeping the administration at full capacity at the elementary school. The SAU does not have a facilities director. That's in line with, in the past, getting rid of the curriculum director and so forth. So that's where those things are.
All right, I think we have one more public comment, and then we'll end here and go on to board matters.
Chancellor Rozier Jaffrey. I'd just like to say that moving to something that was in the past doesn't have to be a bad thing. That, I don't want to speak for the other seniors, but I know that at least some of them would agree that we feel we didn't get the high school experience we looked forward to growing up, athletic-wise. We grew up that when you came here, you were going to try and make a varsity team, and that varsity's team goal was to win. And if you look it up, a team's goal with the number one goal of winning has a better likelihood of being good sports than a team that wins 2 games and has the goal of being good sports. I just think that if we took a step back to where it was, I'd say it's my 6th grade year, didn't get to play baseball because of COVID, and after that it seemed like everything changed, and we didn't get what we looked forward to. We didn't get what we came to watch games growing up. You'd get stuck standing on the stage. You just don't see that type of environment anymore, and I think it would be beneficial to go back to that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to board matters. What, Chris? You raised your hand.
Yeah, just
yep.
So I don't know what we're going to discuss for board matters, so maybe I'm preemptive here.
Tell me if I'm getting this right. So we are not going to be making decisions tonight. The board has kind of looked at our committees, and we're kind of have them in place. We do have a policy meeting coming up this Thursday. But I think that it would be a good idea, if the board is amenable, to offer some priorities to the superintendent, considering the options that were laid before us. And so if the board is amenable, then what I would like to do is have each board member speak to what we heard tonight and share direction so that the superintendent has this week to prepare. We've asked our questions, and so I think that might be the direction to move forward. I know a couple of us have kind of in tune to what we want, but if is that kind of what you were thinking? Yeah. 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 So I will go last as board chair, and I'll win. No, just kidding. All right. So who would like to go first? It'd be probably easy to go in line. Sandy, would you mind going first? Okay. Is this your microphone?
So my clear vision would be that I would like to do the best we can to keep at least partial pre-K. If we have to do tuition-based, to bring it up to full speed, then that's what we need to do. But I think I would like to keep partial pre-K. We can't fund it all. I would like to see, these were sticking points that we dealt with last year. The pre-K, the little Orioles, and the sports. And we're right back here this year, and we'll probably be right back there next year. But as far as the sports, I think sports are a valuable part of the program. They're not reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they're valuable part of the high school experience or the school experience. I think that it's gotten a little out of hand. I think that everybody's going to play, I guess, and that's great. And it keeps kids off the street, and it keeps kids engaged. That's all good, but I think that we need to kind of tone that down. If we take the middle school sports, and those are just intramural with no busing. Some of these clubs, I think all these clubs are great, but every club includes a stipend, and that costs money. The transportation's money, the stipend's money. I think they're all great. I don't want to lose them, but we got to cut money. I don't know. I see French in here, the French teacher. I'm not thinking, I don't know. I don't know how many kids are in the French class or take it. I don't think that's a popular language, and maybe I'm wrong. If you're willing to use some of the money that's in the current facilities budget, but I don't want to use it all. It would just, to say we're going to take money from this trust fund for piddly stuff, I just don't agree on. So I think those were my things.
I got 3 things. Pre-K, yeah, sure, keep part of that, but definitely look at the how we can somehow charge for that or bring in some income for that if we're going to choose to keep part of pre-K. The $190,000 maintenance reserved thing, I'm not in favor of taking that money, throwing it over here. It feels like a rob Peter to pay Paul type thing. We've heard a lot, and we've received many emails on the activities director, and I think we can still continue to look at that and possibly turn that to a part-time position. That's all I have.
First of all, I want to recognize that the taxpayers did cut back on our budget because a lot of them are in very bad financial stress right now because the economy isn't good. That being said, I don't think that we should take the money that was allocated to make improvements to the buildings and use it for anything other than that, just to kind of play a shell game and shuffle the money so that we could, spend on other things that we'd like to. I am not a person who is especially athletic, but I recognize that for some people that is their route to success, and they learn things through sports that are just fantastic and so important, as are regular studies. I mean, you've got to be able to read, write, and do arithmetic in order to be successful. And I recently, just as being part of the school board, I did take and pass the Praxis teacher exams to see what our teachers have to know in order to be qualified to teach. And it's a lot. It was a really challenging test. And I think that we should all strive, or everyone should strive to make sure that every kid graduating is capable of passing a test, that they're fluent in English and they can do math so that they can balance a budget. As far as activities, I think maybe we could streamline the number of activities to the most popular ones so that we weren't expanding so far and having so many stipends. But I also hate to see the prospects of anyone getting laid off, because I personally just got a job in the past few weeks and I was laid off in September, and it is a horrible experience. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone. So with the cut budget, I don't know what to do, but it's a tragic situation. That's it.
Just a few things I want to hit on. I guess first of all, when we talk about all these things, and I know our school board members, we do have a lot of things to consider, and I agree with Lisa, it's like we haven't talked about everything, but I just encourage everyone to, as I think somebody else said, these are, people and kids that are impacted. So, you know, if you're not familiar with some of these programs, we have very limited time left, but I encourage you to kind of learn as much as possible about, you know, our pre-K program or our, you know, sports programs before we make these decisions. I think it's our duty to be as informed as possible about these, and it will make it harder, I think, to make the cuts, but it's really important. Partnering, I think, is something that we do really well, and will need to do better job, or maybe not better job, but more of in the future, just for financial sustainability, right? So I don't know that we'll be able to establish those partnerships over the next week. However, I think that additional funding, partnering is something that we need to do. But as of right now, we can only, you know, really cut programs, and we can't, I think, as a board, you know, promise what's going to fill the gap. I think within the next week or so, I think we need to be careful about that, thinking if we're going to cut this, you know, I hope it'll get picked up, but I think that's somewhat out of the realm of our responsibility. You know, if a program is cut, you know, be it sports, be it pre-K, oh, somebody else will pick it up. I think we can work to that, but I don't see us in the next week being able to make that guarantee, and, you know, hopefully the community will. By the same token, like if we're making some assumptions that we're going to get volunteers or people are going to do it for free, I don't think we as a board can do that. We can only fund things or not fund things. That's within our realm of responsibility. So just something to consider. That's, to me, that's our job. If somebody can correct me if you see it differently, but we're either going to fund it or not fund it. You know, to me, if it's not in the budget, then, you know, we can work to make that happen, but it's going to take some partnership there. Yeah, the Little Orioles Center. You know, we have had a lot of feedback on that, I think positive and negative, and I think going back, right, that's been an issue over the few years, and to me, we need to recognize, again, that it hasn't necessarily been just a funding issue, or I'll say a revenue or a tax issue. I think we've explained, even here tonight, pretty clearly that it's kind of a, you know, break even for the district. People are against it for different reasons, and I think we should recognize that. And again, shouldn't necessarily drive our decision, but we need to understand that this may come up every year, and we have some work to do there to have people understand maybe what that's bringing, the important benefit to our teachers. We talk about it a lot, but that's that. I agree with the maintenance reserve fund. I think the point should be to build that up, to save it. It's a creative idea, and I think that it's good, Ruben, that you brought that up, because it's a creative idea to use that, but I don't think we should unless we absolutely have to. And I don't think I have anything else specific right now, Lisa.
Is this still on? Okay. It's hard going after everybody because I feel like they've used all the words. But I am in agreement with much of what was said by the board, so thank you for that. The pre-K, if we can add even partial back into the budget, that would be really ideal. I know it's like better than nothing, right? I really wish we could have it all. But when we look at the budget, right, we have to kind of think, well, now we have to just shrink it. And instead of just cutting off a whole arm of something, let's like try and just reduce so that we can preserve. And so that's kind of the way I was looking at everything. But keeping partial pre-K would be ideal. Reducing athletics to, and I think the word that keeps being used is varsity. And maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I'm thinking that means high school. And not middle school. If that means preserving classroom teachers, I would like to see that. Yeah, because the classrooms are really important, and if it can help offset that, it would be helpful. And then partnering with the community. I think we have a lot of resources in our community. A couple of them were named today, the rec departments and whatnot, and I think we really need to, if the community is saying, let's let the community help, then I think we should really lean into that and really take a look at what that looks like, because I think there is a lot of help out there, and we just need to reach out and be open to the possibilities that our community can contribute to our schools, and that I think could benefit us. So those are my thoughts.
This is not easy. We've done this a few times before, and it's just not any easier. So, as everyone else has spoken, I agree that I think we can try to keep at least a couple pre-K, 4-year-old pre-K classrooms. The reduction in sports is horrific. I guess we'll have to really rely on our strong partners in the community to help keep these kids active, and that's really horrible. But hopefully we can keep our clubs going, because they do not require transportation, and while there is a stipend, it's a much smaller amount, and it provides so much enrichment to our students, as well as providing them a place to go after school. There's a reason that kids keep signing up for these programs, and it's because they want to be here, which is amazing. I'm all for keeping the Little Oriole Center, looking for ways to cut that funding so that we can bring that revenue up as close to balance as possible. I appreciate that you reached out to other members in the community, Ruben, to see if there's any other need amongst municipal leaders for daycare. And I think that was very innovative, and we need to keep thinking along those lines. What else do we have? The Facilities Trust Fund is scary and very risky, and I'm not convinced it's a good idea. I just have seen too many disasters hit these old buildings, and it's a big chunk of money, but all we need is a wet year and a flood at RMS, and we have to replace the boiler again or whatever else. So it makes me too nervous. So we talked about athletics, we talked about pre-K. I guess the idea that I have is that we need to keep moving forward. We're not going to travel at the same speed that we had hoped to with our proposed budget, but we really should not be moving backwards. I believe that we can continue, I hope that we can continue to have a vibrant varsity program, because we have awesome Parks and Recs sports, and kids can come up through that. And I've heard Nick say in the past that there's scholarships available for families that may not be able to afford those programs. So we look around, we see these banners, we would like to be there again, but there are other reasons why we don't have those same numbers of students participating, in part because we just don't have that many young people in our community anymore. And frankly, we haven't talked about this, and so maybe I'm alone, but if there's any way that we can encourage our student athletes and our club members to raise funds, I would never say that they have to pay to play, but if we can start encouraging them to do car washes or some way help offset the cost for uniforms, or when we have to use the Franklin Pierce gym, just some way to help contribute and offset some of those costs. I would appreciate that, but again, I would never say pay to play, because as a kid, my family could not have afforded that, and I wouldn't want to put that on anyone else. And it's a horrible situation we're in, and we're talking about making grade school classrooms bigger. We're talking about losing AP classes. And all the while, we have people yelling at us that our proficiency scores are not rising fast enough. So somehow we are going to ask our teachers, our fewer teachers, to do more, to be better with less. And I'm very sorry about that. Oh, you have one.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to fall in line with some of this. My priorities would be to keep as much of the pre-K as possible, whether that's through our own funding or through elsewhere, and to keep the Little Orioles Center as active as possible. Those are my main priorities, and I am 100% against using the maintenance reserve fund. That's a fund that is that we request to be filled through votes, through the ballot. So we ask money to be put into that, and voters trust us to use that money for that purpose. And I'm not comfortable being creative with that. I think we need it way too much to be creative with elsewhere. So those are my priorities. And I know this is putting everything back into your hands to come up with where everything is going to land in 1 week. When we come back, we'll look at what you've made final, Ruben, and thank you for the administration and the business office for doing this next impossible job. Okay. And we will take a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else. Okay, Ally makes a motion to adjourn. Nope, sorry. Yes, we did the board want to go into non-public? Shake heads, yes or no? Okay, we have that option, but we don't have a reason tonight. Okay, so we will adjourn, and then, so Ally, you're making a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Christine, you're seconding? All right, any further discussion? I don't want to rush anybody. All right, all in favor of adjourning? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Passes 7-0-0. Thank you, everybody.